back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the final.
Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth, and it's great to have you guys here on this Thursday, July 25th. We have a lot to talk about on the show today. Before I get into that, just want to remind you guys, as always, to tip or donate, get your comments recognized, make sure to go to the following link. That is gsmcpodcast.net. Really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is gsmcpodcast.net. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker at the bottom of the show segment down below. So let's get into what we are going to talk about today. So we're going to start off the show. We're going to recap episode 4 of Hard Knocks. We'll get into that, and I'll give you some of my takeaways from it. Then in the second part of the show, we're going to continue rankings, but now we'll be doing running backs. We'll talk about the running backs. In the NFC East, we'll rank them. It's kind of going to be like running back groups. So just wanted to get into that. Then in the third part of the show, we'll talk about Aaron Rodgers and his comments on his trip to Egypt and just some more comments surrounding him missing training camp and things like that. So we'll get into that as well. Then in the fourth part of the show, we'll talk about Josh Allen and Brandon Beane, the GM of the Buffalo Bills, coming to Josh Allen's defense because there's some criticism of him being overrated. So we'll talk about that. And then in the final part of the show, I'll give you guys an update on the Steelers quarterback competition. And, it's just some things that Mike Tomlin had to say regarding that. Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. So let's get into the first topic now, which is talking about Hard Knocks. So another episode coming and going, and some of the things that happened in the episode, things they went over. The Giants actually brought in the top 3 wide receivers in for a visit at the same time. Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, who they eventually took, and Rome Odunze. And they basically ranked them with Neighbors as the top receiver, then Marvin Harrison Jr., and then Rome Odunze. So, and it was interesting, though, because towards the end of the episode, because, the draft is about to start, so next week we're going to see, how the draft goes. We know how the draft goes, but from their perspective, of course. Joe Shane and Brian Dable, they're kind of going over, different scenarios with Steve Tisch and John Mara, just how, if things unfold. Because they weren't going to get the quarterback that they wanted. Because that was really, what they were going to do, but, the Patriots were not going to trade out of it. So they, they're kind of going over different things. Like if this happens, if Malik Neighbors gets taken, they could do this. They could, if they traded down with the team that wanted to move up, then they probably end up with either Rome Odunze or Brock Bowers. Because they were talking about, well, these teams could end up taking tackles because, the Titans and the Chargers both ended up taking tackles. The Chargers took Joe Alt, and the Titans took J.C. Latham with their first pick. So it was very interesting that they were going over that. And, of course, they liked all 3 wide receivers, but you only could take one. And it was either going to be Malik Neighbors or Rome Odunze, because the Cardinals ended up taking Marvin Harrison Jr. So But they really liked all three. And yeah, they came to the defense of Daniel Jones. They were like, Daniel Jones is the guy, but they didn't want to blindside him if they did indeed take a quarterback, if they had the opportunity to do that. Um, I know that was mentioned as well. But they did bring up, because when they were talking about, maybe trading with the Patriots, they did bring up, the '04 draft. They had Ernie Accorsi in this episode, who was the GM at the time in '04 when they made the swap with the Chargers to get Eli Manning. But they did have to give up a lot to get Eli, because Eli got taken by the Chargers, of course. That was one of the best QB classes of all time, with those two and Ben Roethlisberger as well. So the Giants were not going to give up, an arm and a leg to move up to the number 3 pick. The Giants are being smart. And I know from other people's perspective, they feel like the Giants aren't. That's not what I'm getting here from at least my perspective from watching these episodes. I think the Giants have been smart. They're not trying to give up a lot. They're not trying to pay a lot for a certain player to come back. So I'm fine with what the Giants have been doing. The problem is the quarterback position, and I know, training camp has started, and Daniel Jones already in day one is struggling. So, but I mean, it's day one, so don't want to go too crazy, but just having to hear that already, it's just like, here we go again. But I thought that was interesting that they were comparing, possibly trading up, or trading to get Drake May, kind of like not that they traded up to get Eli Manning, but they to give up a lot to get a certain pick. Of course, he did say that moving up for a QB is worth it if the team is confident in the player's potential. Now the Giants really liked Drake May, it seems, but I don't think they liked him that much that they were gonna give up a lot to get that pick. Because I think the Patriots said it was gonna take. It was going to take, obviously, number 6 and another 1 and then a 2 and a 3, I think, from next year. It was something along. It was a lot of draft picks. It was multiple firsts and then a second, a third. It's not worth it to do that. So the Giants are like, all right, we got to recalibrate, and we're going to try to surround Daniel Jones with some more weapons. So, and that's what they did. And Joe Shane kind of went over, it was a bring your family to work day in the episode. And he was kind of going over, who he should take, with his family, and they had, different things to say. His son was saying, oh, it's a no-brainer to take. Well, he was like, take Malik Neighbors, I believe. Again, they also did a doomsday as well. So if they didn't get Neighbors, they probably would have taken him if he was available. But yeah, and then Saquon Barkley did make an appearance in the episode because they were scouting some guys at Penn State, and he was there. So they were chatting up with him a little bit. Not Joe Shane, but the Giants, some of the Giants scouts were talking to him. Supposedly, I was hearing that Saquon didn't know that he was being recorded. For Hard Knocks, he didn't know that the phone call with Shane was going to be recorded. So I thought that was interesting. I heard that yesterday. But yeah, that was allowed to get put to air. So, but they were speaking very very positively about Saquon in the episode. It just didn't work out, and I think we'll go over the full Diana Rossini interview tomorrow, because I think that was released. So I will get into that and what he had to say. But trying to think of what else happened within in the episode as my dog starts barking. But Yeah, I mean, next week is going to be, we're going to see the draft. They were scouting the tight end that they ended up taking, in the episode, as well. But yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of anything else that happened. I mean, they interviewed the receivers. They really liked Malik Neighbors. They really liked Jaden Daniels too. Um, so that was another thing as well. But Washington wasn't moving out of number 2 either. So, but they got Malik Neighbors, and you look at this Giants receiving core, and I mean, I think it's okay. It's a young receiving core that can grow. I mean, it could be like the Packers receiving core last year, where you have a lot of young guys that they aren't necessarily stars, but they're good players and they get the job done. Now, Malik Neighbors could be a star. Wan'Dale Robinson was solid for the Giants last year, and then you have Jalen Hyatt, a deep ball guy. I mean, these guys can grow. It's just the quarterback position. That's the problem. And I don't know if they are. I don't know what's going to happen. But Daniel Jones, he's practicing. He's going to play week 1. He's on track to play week 1. And we'll see. I mean, he's got to prove it. He's really got to prove it if he's going to want to stick around and be a Giant. And I don't think, if you're rooting for him to fail, like, you may not believe in him, but don't root for him to fail. That's, if you're a Giant fan, you want to see this guy do good. It's just, now it's 2024, and we're still going back and forth on whether or not he's the guy or not. But the Giants need somebody to play quarterback. So right now on the roster, he is the best option. But don't be surprised if we end up seeing Drew Lock or Tommy DeVito. So we'll see how the draft unfolds next week. Well, how from their perspective, and let me know what you guys think about the episode. I think it's been solid. You're really getting, more of an understanding of what goes on behind the scenes. So, with free agency and the draft. So, I like it. And I never really watched Hard Knocks. So, this is new for me. And, of course, it's, the team that I root for. So, but let me know what you guys think about that episode if you did watch it. What were your thoughts? So, we're going to take our first break. And then when we come back, we will continue to talk about the NFC East. We will rank the running back groups within that division. So, with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. Feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits, I'm losing shit. A stupid myth, you choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we are going to rank the running back groups in the NFC East. So I was trying to say running back and groups, and I combined the two. I guess I can't talk today. That's fine. But I do want to remind you guys, though, that next Thursday, a week from today, we got an NFL game being played. And that is the Hall of Fame game. Now, it's funny because they're showing the wide receivers on the NFL's Instagram of the Bears and the Texans. They're showing Diggs and Nico Collins and Adunze, who we just talked about briefly, and Keenan Allen. None of those guys are even going to be playing in the game. But listen, we got an NFL game, and it's usually on NBC, but this year it's on ESPN and ABC. So, next Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, I'm really excited. Because, again, it's a game that we can talk about. We could talk about it, and then the next day we could recap it, even though, I mean, we're going to be just talking about the backups and what they did. But next Thursday, the NFL is back. So I'm really excited about that. So let's kind of dive into these running back rankings. So, going through it last night, I was like, I can't really do an individual running back for some of the teams because, well, for example, the Cowboys, I mean, they're going to be doing a committee. And, the Commanders, they got a couple of running backs. The Eagles, I mean, they got Saquon Barkley and the Giants, that's why I'm like, just do running back groups. So I actually, believe it or not, I put the Cowboys last in this ranking. I have them 4. Now, I think the Cowboys are the second best team in the division. But when it comes to their offense, I mean, they're going to be throwing the ball a bunch of times. And they got to work things out with CeeDee Lamb. We understand that. And that's how they're going to win games, is Dak Prescott throwing the football. But running it, I just, you got Ezekiel Elliott they bring back, Rico Dowdle, Deuce Vaughn, Royce Freeman. That's their running back room right now. Now, that doesn't mean because, the Cowboys up front, they got, I guess the second best offensive line in the division, although it's not the offensive line that it once was when you had prime Zeke and DeMarco Murray running the football as well, even before that. But I don't really know. I think the Cowboys are going to have some issues running the football. Now, again, it's going to be a committee, so, guys are going to be coming in and out. They're going to have a rotation. Guys are going to be fresh, you would imagine. But you're not getting Ezekiel Elliott from 2016. You're not getting that same player. He wasn't very good before he left Dallas. Now, it was a good balance that they had, because even my friends brought this up recently, which I do agree with to an extent, is, when Zeke and Tony Pollard were together, they worked well. 2022, Pollard had a great year, but you also had Zeke to come in and, give him a little bit of a break, get those short yardage gains. And, Zeke still had a lot of rushing touchdowns, I believe, in 2022. So it was a good balance. And then Pollard, took a step back. I said all along it's been because of injury. We'll see how he does this year now with Tajay Spears as his running mate. I said running mate. Well, we do have an election coming up. I don't know. But yeah, you got Tajay Spears now. That's going to be the Titans' backfield. So yeah, I don't know. For me, I'm putting the Cowboys last. And again, this has to do with their running back room. I still think the Cowboys are the second best team in the division, but I don't know. I got to put them last because I don't know who's going to separate themselves from this group here. We'll have to wait and see. Rico Dowdle's kind of like that change of pace back. I mean, maybe Deuce Vaughn is the guy that takes over and is the lead back. Maybe they're looking for him to be that guy because it's not Zeke and it's not Royce Freeman. It's definitely not Royce Freeman. No offense to Royce Freeman, but right now, at least looking at the depth chart on ESPN, he's number 4. So, all right. So then at number 3, I got the Giants. Now, there's no Saquon Barkley. But, they bring in Devin Singletary. They made improvements to the offensive line. And Devin Singletary is coming off of a decent year. He finished barely under 900 yards rushing. I believe he had 898 rushing yards. Yeah, so he had 216 carries, which was the most that he's had in a single season, for 898 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns. I got to put the Giants ahead of the Cowboys because they know who's their starting running back. And, from watching Hard Knocks, they were in on Singletary, Motor as they call him. It was between him and Swift, which, I don't know, maybe I was kind of leaning towards that maybe going after Swift instead, but that's fine. Singletary's coming off of his best season. And, if the Giants' offensive line is improved, he's going to have some holes to run through. And I think he could go out there and have a decent year and put up similar numbers to that. Maybe not get... I'm not expecting him to rush over 1,000 yards. But, I think that he could, get close to those numbers like he did last year. I still think he could be a productive player for the Giants. Now, obviously, he's not as dynamic as Saquon Barkley is. But I think for Giant fans, all they're asking is for a guy that could just carry the rock, 10, 15 times a game and, get, 70, 80 yards rushing. Doesn't have to get 100 yards a game. Now, that'd be great, but, I think we're just... Giant fans are just looking for decent production out of this guy. And I think they will get it. So we kind of have an idea of who's the lead back for the Giants. With the Cowboys, we don't really know. There's unknowns. Now, Singletary is stepping into a new situation, and the Giants' offensive line has not been good, but they have made improvements, and I'm thinking that those improvements are going to pay off. So we'll just have to wait and see, but that's my thoughts on the Giants. So I got their running back room at 3. And then at 2, I got the Commanders. We got Brian Robinson Jr. and Austin Eckler. And, Austin Eckler, had a down year last year. But you know what? I think maybe he could still be productive, catching passes. He's still a good receiving back. I think, last year, I know there was one play against the Packers that was posted on Twitter and, just talking about Eckler's speed. But when he's not going to be the lead back. It's going to be Brian Robinson Jr., who I think has been a good player for the Commanders. And, just looking at his stats from last season, 178 carries, 733 rushing yards, and 5 touchdowns. And he averaged 4.1 yards per carry. So those are his stats. He's going into his... What is he going into? Is he going into his 3rd or 4th year? And, of course, ESPN's not helping me out. I think it's his... I believe it's his 3rd... Yeah, it's his 3rd year. He's going into his 3rd year. Because 2022, he had 797 rushing yards. And that was in 12 games. And he had 2 rushing touchdowns that season. So, and he played 15 games last year. So he played in more games last year, and he had less rushing yards. But we'll see what happens this year now. I mean, you got a new quarterback in there. So, new offense with Cliff Kingsbury in the fold. And then for Eckler last year, he had 628 rushing yards and 5 touchdowns. And he played in 14 games last season. So, and the previous 2 years, I mean, he had 13 rushing touchdowns in 22. He had 12 rushing touchdowns in 21. And he had 20 touchdowns in total in 2021. He had 8 receiving touchdowns. So last year he had 436 receiving yards and a touchdown. I mean, they're going to use Eckler in the passing game. So I think he's going to be a threat, catching passes. Brian Robinson Jr. is going to be the lead back, like I said, the 3-down back, you would imagine. Unless they have them both on the field at the same time and Eckler's used as a receiver. You could do that. But yeah, Eckler's getting older. He's getting in that age with running backs where, you're starting to decline. That's why I brought up, that tweet that I saw when Chargers played the Packers of Eckler, running with the football, and he just did not have that breakaway speed that he used to. So yeah, I don't know how Eckler's going to be. We'll have to wait and see how they use him. I mean, they're going to use him as a receiver, but I'm curious to see how he is on this new team. So, yeah, I got the Commanders at 2, though. And then at 1, I got the Eagles, and that's purely because of Saquon Barkley. I think Saquon Barkley is going to have a monster year for this team. And, you still got Kenneth Gainwell. I know Boston Scott's not on the team anymore. I don't think Rashad Penny is still with them. I could be wrong, though. But, Saquon Barkley's going to get, he's going to get the bulk of the carries. He's going to be the 3-down back. And just don't do good against the Giants. That's all I'm asking. Did miss some time last year due to injury, but he's, I think he's still got some good years left. I think especially with the Eagles and their offensive line, Saquon's going to have a big year, in my opinion. And like I said, hopefully it's not against the Giants, but he's going to want to go off against the Giants. But yeah, they got Kenneth Gainwell as a number 2 back. Then they got Will Shipley and Lou Nichols. So yeah, kind of a different backfield there. They still got Gainwell. Gainwell's been there for a few years now. But yeah, there's no more Boston Scott. Thankfully, he's with the Rams because he just always killed the Giants every time they played against him. But yeah, so those are my running back rankings. So we got the Cowboys running back group last, Giants at 3, Washington's at 2, and then the Eagles at 1. So that's my opinion. Tomorrow we will do the NFC North. So, but yeah, let me know what you guys think about those rankings. So before we go to break, just want to remind you guys once again, tip or donate, get your comments recognized. Make sure to go to the following link. That is gsmcpodcast.net. Really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is gsmcpodcast.net. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker at the bottom of the show segment down below. So when we come back from our second break of the show, we will talk about Aaron Rodgers, some more comments he made regarding his trip to Egypt, as well as, some other things, talking about missing training or missing mini camp, get into more of that discussion when we return from our second break. So with that being said, stick around and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the third part of the show, we are going to talk more about Aaron Rodgers, him commenting on the Egypt trip, as well as, some other things as well, talking about his relationship with Robert Saleh as well. So this is what he had to say. Talking to the media, Rodgers went over his decision to travel to Egypt, a country he's been a fan of for 3 decades. So that's, one thing that he said. He also said, I made it a point to be at every OTA. I was at the physical day as a part of the mini camp. Missed the 2 practices, had talks with all my teammates about it. I think they understood it was more of an issue outside of the building than it was inside of the building, which is what they continue to say, that they weren't bothered by Rodgers' decision to go on this trip. And he said, Robert and I are great, meaning Robert Saleh. We had great conversations throughout the offseason, had a fun one last night in his office until later on. It is what it is. I'm an adult. I knew what I was getting into. I knew the fine that was coming and also knew how much I wanted to be in Egypt. I wish there hadn't been a conflict scheduling-wise, but it was what it was. And let's see if there was anything else he had to... Oh, I think it's going to take a little time. I feel great. The numbers... We track all the numbers out west where I work out and have for a decade. My movement stuff is tracking this exact same as last year, actually a little bit stronger with some of the squatting that we did. I just need the reps. The last 5% of being 100% is just the mental part. And then he also said it's been a goal. The beauty is every single year there's 8 to 12 teams, maybe probably less, but 8 to 12 teams that can actually do it, meaning, winning a Super Bowl. And we're one of those 8 to 12. All right, so that's speaking very confidently there. Yeah, it's just, look, and again, you have disagreements because, there's 2 sides, one that thinks it's a big deal that he wasn't at minicamp, and then you have the other side that said it's not a big deal, which I said it's not a big deal. But I also did say I do get it because you're coming off of an injury, you're trying to get on the same page with your offense, and by missing that time, you're missing time to build the rapport with your receivers, and because you really didn't get to play with them last year because you played in a preseason game. You played what did he play, a series or 2 against the Giants, which he threw a touchdown pass to Garrett Wilson, and then only played 4 snaps against the Bills last year. So that is where I'll agree. Yeah, then maybe you should have tried to schedule that trip a different time. But it's interesting because it's like he should know when minicamp is. So wouldn't you try to schedule around that so you're not cutting into practice time? But I don't know. But it's just, it's funny how, you watch all these, sports shows and you listen to the sports radio, and it's just, most of the hosts will say, they're giving what Rodgers wants. Because they say how, Rodgers likes the attention and things like that, but that's what they're doing But when Aaron Rodgers makes news. So if he's making news, yeah, you got to talk about it. But yeah, I mean, the Jets have continuously said that it wasn't a big deal and they were fine with it. But I mean, that doesn't mean that fans should be fine with it, and like I said, people in the media shouldn't be fine with it. They have their opinion, and I have mine, and mine is I don't think it's a big deal. Because he did go to OTAs, which are voluntary. He was there every single day. And now he's at training camp. It's not like he missed all of that. And it's July 25th. Their first game is September... Let's see. So the season starts September 5th, right? Their first game is on September 9th. We're not even in August yet. There's plenty of time to get those reps. But I get it. I get it. You played 4 snaps last year. But I mean, I don't know. Listen, he's one of those. He's been one of those topics this offseason where I've been very repetitive, and I just want to see him take the field against the 49ers so we can have a different conversation. How does he play coming off of this injury? How is the offensive line going to be? There's just a lot of conversations that, I want to get to, but we still got some time before that. And Also, there's been discussion I know on ESPN, they were talking about should he play in the preseason. I said I think he should play at least a series. Just to get himself back into, so he could get up to game speed a little bit. Because a lot of times, before when it was 4 preseason games, I think the third one was always the dress rehearsal. Now the second one is the dress rehearsal. I mean, again, if they don't want to do that, unless you want to just have Tyrod Taylor go out there and he plays with the first team, then that's fine. But I don't know. I feel like Rodgers should at least play a series, a drive. And if he doesn't, so be it. But that's just my opinion. I think he should at least play a little bit. But, again, he's coming off of a major injury, so you could also say, well, they don't want to get him hurt. But he could also but then again, he could get, and I said this, you could say that, but then there's a response to that. Well, he could get hurt in the regular season anyways. So, the biggest thing, I think, is the offensive line. They got to be able to protect him. Because if they don't protect him, and we see what we saw in the preseason and in week 1 against the Bills for those couple plays, it's not going to be good. That's really how it all starts, is up front. And if it's a disaster again, you're wasting another year with this defense. Because this defense is not getting any younger. Now, I say that like they're an old defense. They're not. But you're wasting the prime years of this defense. If Rodgers gets hurt again, they're done. And no disrespect to Tyrod Taylor. Then they actually have a backup quarterback with Tyrod Taylor. No more Trevor Siemian. I almost said Blake Boyle or Tim Boyle. Getting him and Blake Bortles mixed up. But yeah, they're done if he gets hurt. And I've taken that optimistic approach to the Jets. I'm more optimistic than some Jet fans are. Because you know what? Somebody has to be. And this team has a lot of talent. And if Rodgers is healthy, they're going to block out the problems that Jet fans may have with Nathaniel Hackett and Robert Saleh. If Rodgers plays, you're not going to have to worry about that because he's going to run the offense and the defense is going to be like, hey, we finally got an offense that can actually back us up, and that's going to motivate them. Now, they still got some other issues that they got to address because Hassan Reddick, who they traded for, he's looking for a new contract, and who knows what's going to end up happening. And if they have to move off of him before the season starts, that's going to look really bad on Joe Douglas. So, yeah, they did place Hassan Reddick. My friend sent this in our sports chat. So, yeah, they did place Hassan Reddick on the reserve did not report list. So, who knows when that's going to get resolved. But, yeah, you can't waste the prime years of this defense. So, you got to hope that Rodgers stays healthy. But, again, the offensive line has to perform. And you can't say the Jets didn't try to address it. They got Tyron Smith. They drafted a tackle in case he gets hurt. John Simpson, right? Bring him in. Traded for Morgan Moses. You hope Vera Tucker comes back. I mean, they addressed the offensive line. Now it's just got to gel. And they got to stay healthy. And that's really the biggest thing is health. Because if, guys get hurt, that's going to be their downfall. I mean, that's going to be their downfall that'd be a downfall for a lot of teams. But it's just, because Tyron Smith has got an injury history. Rodgers, it's, and you got Mike Williams as well coming back off an ACL, and he's a guy that's gotten banged up over the course of his career. Guys got to stay healthy. but it really starts up front. The offensive line, I'm going to say it right now, the offensive line is really going to determine what kind of season the Jets are going to have. Because if they gel and they play well and they stay relatively healthy, Rodgers is going to be fine. But if he's running for his life at 40 years old, he's going to get hurt. And what does that mean for Breece Hall? They can't block for him. So, yeah, it all starts with the offensive line. But, yeah, look, people are going to say that it was a big deal that Rodgers didn't, go to mandatory minicamp. I get it. But, like I said, we're not even in August yet. They play on September 9th. That is the first game that they play. And you got the preseason, if Rodgers does play in that. Even if he doesn't, you're still practicing around those times. There's still plenty of time. I get it. He's coming off of an injury. He's 40 years old. You haven't really played in a game with your Jets teammates, but I think they're going to be fine. And if they're not, listen, I'll come on the show and I'll say, yeah, I was wrong. But right now we got some time before then. So, but let me know what you guys think about Rodgers. How do you feel about him skipping out on mandatory minicamp? And how do you see him performing this year with the Jets? Let me know in the comments. So we're going to take our next break. When we come back, we'll talk about another quarterback. We'll talk about Josh Allen. Brandon Beane, the GM of the Bills, coming to his defense because of some criticisms with Josh Allen, which there has, it's kind of always been there, but he had some comments, so I wanted to go over that as well. So with that being said, stick around and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the fourth part of the show, we're going to talk about some comments made by Bills general manager Brandon Beane on Josh Allen, coming to Josh Allen's defense. Because, there's people out there that call Josh Allen overrated. So I just wanted to get into what he had to say, and I'll give you my thoughts. So, this is what he said about the narrative that Josh Allen is one of the NFL's most overrated players. And he said, there's idiots everywhere. An anonymous NFL executive was recently cited by ESPN as tabbing the two-time Pro Bowler as one of the most overrated players in the NFL. Now, this is courtesy of an article on NFL.com. Beane said, I don't know where to start. It's frustrating. You try to ignore this stuff, but Josh is going into year 7, and there's still the naysayers. I don't get it. If I was going to use rated, I would say underrated before I say overrated. And I know I'm biased. He's our guy. I love him every single day. These things that come out of there, I know people love the rankings of whoever. But when you don't put your name to it and you make comments like that, like, who is this executive? Executive is a loose term. I was probably referred to as an executive well before I should have been. I just say, if you're not going to put your name on it, we really shouldn't validate it. And he also said he's got a natural chip, and I don't think what this person said would change that. I think he's coming into this year with a chip. He wants a title. He wants it every year. That we don't win it, it's digging a deeper chip, and I think that's what motivates him. So I do understand. I do get what he's saying. And you know what? I'm going to bring baseball into this. Because you had Derek Jeter. He was one vote away from it being unanimous being voted unanimously into the Hall of Fame. Now, we have no idea who voted against him not going to the Hall of Fame. And, but you have these individuals that come out and they'll say things, but they want it to be anonymous because they don't want their name being tagged to it because then they're going to get blasted. So I do understand that. And I agree with it. Why? But why are you calling Josh Allen overrated? Now, I don't think Josh Allen is overrated. I think Josh Allen is one of the most talented quarterbacks in the NFL. Now, he's not the most talented. That would be 15 in Kansas City. But, there's no surprise by that. But Josh Allen is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. Now, where the criticism comes from, and I can't really disagree with it, is the turnovers and the lack of success in the postseason, which is the same criticisms that Lamar Jackson gets. It's how you perform in the postseason. These last couple years, back-to-back home playoff games, you lose to the Bengals and you lose to the Chiefs this calendar year, because it happened in 2024. That's where the criticism comes from. And it's the same thing with Lamar Jackson. Lack of postseason success. That's really what I could point to. And the turnovers have kind of reared its ugly head in recent years because, part of it is, people point to Brian Dable leaving as the, part of the reason why Josh Allen has been turning the ball over more. I did want to pull up, because they did have, so most turnovers in the NFL since 2015, and this is the SOG Football Instagram. So you got Derek Carr at the top. Josh Allen's in that second tier. Derek Carr's in like a class of his own. He's got 130 turnovers. Josh Allen's got 102. So this is 2015. Russell Wilson's got 104. Jared Goff's got 115. Matthew Stafford, 119. Jameis Winston, 123. Matt Ryan, 124. Kirk Cousins, 126. And then, Derek Carr, 130. So, and, you got Phillip Rivers in that tier with Josh Allen and Dak. Josh Allen's got more turnovers than Dak. Well, one by one. And, he was drafted 2 years later. He's got 2 less turnovers than Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson was drafted in 2012. You got Jared Goff, who was drafted in 2016. Matthew Stafford, he's been around for a while, of course. Jameis was 2015. Kirk Cousins was 2012. I forget the years that Matt Ryan... What was Matt? Matt Ryan was 2008? And Stafford was 2008 too, I believe. 2008 or 2009. I gotta fact check myself now. I need his Pro Football Reference page. I apologize that I don't know this off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure, yeah. That sounds about right to me. Oh, wait, hold on. He's been, he was taken in 2009. Taken in 2009. So I think Matt Ryan was the year before that then, I believe. But either way, Josh Allen has turned the ball over a lot. And, the turnovers kind of went down. Yeah, Matt Ryan was taken in 2008. Okay. So I was right on the money with that, 2008, 2009, with both those guys. But anyways, once Brian Dable left, the turnovers started rearing its ugly head again. But, Josh Allen's a gunslinger. Like, it's going to happen. But now it's different because you got all of these, different receivers now coming in. And, no more Stephon Diggs. So, it's going to be interesting how Josh Allen performs. I think he's still going to play really well. But, to kind of just go back, 2020, he had 37 touchdowns and 10 interceptions. It's just really good touchdown to interception ratio. And the Bills made it all the way to the AFC Championship game. And, they did lose to the Chiefs, unfortunately. But then 2021, he had 36 touchdowns but 15 interceptions. Then he had, in 2022, 35 touchdowns to 14 interceptions. And then last year, 29 touchdowns to 18 interceptions. So, the touchdowns have slowly gone down and the interceptions have come up. But, again, he's a gunslinger. We know turnovers are going to happen with him. But now, again, you got all these different receivers. You got Chase Claypool and, Marquez Valdez-Scantling. You drafted Keon Coleman. You bring in Curtis Samuel as well. Mac Hollins. There's a lot of, moving parts here. And you still got the tight ends. You still got Khalil Shakir. You got James Cook. I mean, I think the Bills are going to do good. And maybe Josh Allen could kind of do what Patrick Mahomes did in 2022. You lose Tyreek Hill, who's, one of the best offensive weapons in football, best receivers in football. And you go out there and you win a Super Bowl. Now, I don't think the Bills are going to win the Super Bowl, but you never know. They're like, Stephon Diggs is gone? Yeah, the Bills are going to be terrible. They're not going to make the playoffs because that's what some people were saying about the Chiefs when they lost Tyreek Hill. But, I think the Bills are going to be a 10-win team, 10, 11 wins. I think I said that for this year. I mean, I had the Jets finishing ahead of them, but who knows? You still got to give the Bills respect. I don't, and they really weren't using Diggs down the stretch. So I think they're going to be fine. We'll see how the defensive side of the ball is. We'll see how, we got Matt Milano coming back. Von Miller, hopefully, could maybe find the fountain of youth. Because they paid him a lot of money. But yeah, there's a lot of guys that they, that left. So we'll see how they do. But I understand the criticism of Josh Allen, but I wouldn't classify him as overrated. Because he's one of the best dual threat quarterbacks in the NFL, along with Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson's not this big, huge guy like Josh Allen is, but, Josh Allen's going to barrel over people. He's got that, similar play style to Cam Newton. Now, you hope that doesn't, affect him down the line because, then he can end up like Cam Newton. And, after all that wear and tear you're taking, constantly getting hit. But, yeah, he's one of the best dual threat quarterbacks in the NFL. And that's going to continue. But I think you also got to rely on James Cook, take some pressure off of him. And we got to see who's going to step up. Keon Coleman, they're expecting big things out of. MVS and Claypool are probably going to be, they're there for depth. Because I think really the top three receivers, it's going to be, again, I'm just saying this. You got Keon Coleman. I think, I'm on that Khalil Shakir hype train. Now, maybe that's also has to do with fantasy purposes as well because he's on one of my dynasty teams. And then you got Curtis Samuel, who I think is a good player. And they could do, Curtis Samuel, they've had line up in the back. Well, not with the Bills, but, with other teams. He's lined up in the backfield before. They could use him. They could have him coming out of the backfield and dumping off passes to him. So, I don't know. I think that, and you still got, and like I said, you still got the tight ends as well, Kincaid and Knox. The Bills, yeah, you might look at their receiving core and they don't have that number one wide receiver, but I think they're still going to be a good enough offense that they're going to be a threat because of Josh Allen. So, but yeah, like I said, the interceptions have gone up, the touchdowns have gone down. So this year you're hoping that it's the opposite. Josh Allen's touchdowns are back up again, the more specifically, I think you want to see the turnovers down. So, but that's my opinion on it. Let me know what you guys think, though. Do you think Josh Allen's overrated or not? I don't think he is, but again, I understand from certain people's perspectives why they would think that. Because the Bills are a team that makes the playoffs every year, and they don't get it done. I mean, last year, yeah, you beat the Steelers, but what happened when you had the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes playing in his first road playoff game? You had the Chiefs at home, and they couldn't get it done. Now, can't say that all of that falls on Josh Allen, but that's what people look at. They look at the lack of playoff success. They look at these home playoff games that the Bills lose, and they're gonna a large portion of the blame is going to fall at the feet of Josh Allen because of the position he plays. Speaking of the position that Josh Allen plays, we're going to talk about the Steelers playoff, the Steelers quarterback competition. Some recent comments by Mike Tomlin. We'll get into what he had to say, and that is how we will end off the show for today. So for one final time today, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast, and for the final part of the show, we are going to talk about the Steelers quarterback competition. We'll give you an update. Some things that Mike Tomlin said. I know we haven't really talked about we have talked about the Steelers. I know I've talked about the competition a few times, but just some recent comments on that. So, Mike Tomlin, in the spring, proclaimed Wilson as being in pole position. Now, since then, Tomlin has said nothing has changed when asked if Wilson still held the upper hand in the battle with Fields. He said very carefully, "You think I'm actually going to back myself into a corner so you guys are going to ask me daily about the rep allocations? No way. I've been on the job too long for that." He said there's a lot of interesting things about him in terms of his appetite for work. That's really attractive. He's talking about Russ, and that's actually it. That's all Mike Tomlin said in that. So Russell Wilson still has a leg up on Justin Fields, I guess. It's his job to lose, and it's one of those things where. I think Russell Wilson's going to get, a little bit of a runway to, show that he deserves to be the starting quarterback. And then if he starts to struggle, Justin Fields could end up replacing him, which would not shock me. And again, got to give props to the Steelers front office for being able to, get Russell Wilson for the price that they got him at, because the Broncos are paying most of his salary this year. And they didn't really have to give up a lot to get Justin Fields. Now, I've said this too. I'm curious as to what's going to happen after this year. Now, if both guys don't perform, then I don't know what the Steelers are going to do. But, if one of these guys shows that, hey, they could still win, they could win games for you. I'm saying still, like Russell Wilson's, 35. Justin Fields still, has a chance to prove himself in the right system. If one of these guys shows that they can get the job done, then the Steelers can move forward with them. unless they want to keep both. I mean, Justin Fields wants to start. Russell Wilson wants to start. But I don't know how many more opportunities Russell Wilson's going to get. Justin Fields, like I said, he could still get opportunities elsewhere. Russell Wilson, this could be it. Because it didn't end well in Denver, even though he's actually coming off of a decent year. But you're a few years removed from, playing some elite level ball in Seattle. And I saw a TikTok of the 2016 matchup between the Seahawks and the Patriots. I know, again, it was 2016. It's 8 years ago, but still, I mean, that was a different Russ, man. I don't know if you're getting that Russ. He's throwing to, Doug Baldwin and Jermaine Kearse and remember CJ Prosise? Yeah, that was and that was a regular season matchup against the Patriots. That was the first time they matched up since Super Bowl 49, and the Seahawks won that game. That was when the Patriots were going down the field and they got into the red zone, and there was no flag on the when Cam Chancellor and Gronkowski were 1-on-1, and people were calling for a flag, and the Patriots didn't get it, and the Seahawks won that game. Yeah, but that was a fun year of football too. 2016. Yeah, a very long time ago though. But yeah, this is it for Russell Wilson though. If he doesn't perform with the Steelers, I don't know who else is going to give him a chance. I mean, maybe another team gives him a chance if they're desperate. But I mean, it's not even like Russ played that bad for the Broncos. He was not bad. But people point to, well, he can't see the middle of the field and he's checking down constantly. Yeah, there's more to just the numbers. I get it. But, the Broncos at one point, they had a chance to maybe make a run, and it looked like maybe they were going to make the playoffs. But that just ended up not happening. They lost to the Lions. Well, the Lions really beat them up in that game, and I'm forgetting what other games they lost. Trying to think. There was that game, and then they lost to the Patriots on Christmas Eve, which I took the Patriots in that game with in the spread pool. That was kind of a no-brainer in my opinion, but I'm forgetting who else. I'm missing another team that they lost to. But anyways, I think of the Lions on that Saturday night. They lost that. They also lost to the Texans too. In Houston, that was a close game. They had a chance to win that game, but Russell Wilson threw another interception. He had three picks in that game. But yeah, it was once they started playing these better teams like the Texans and the Lions, they kind of just showed you who they were. Again, they're just, an average team. And they ended up finishing 8-9, and Russell Wilson got benched. So, but for me, who gives them the best chance to win? It's I don't know. I gotta go with Russ. I think Russell Wilson gives them the best chance to win over Fields. I do. And it's not really saying that much. I don't really think the gap is that wide between these two guys. But if it was me, I'm leaning towards Russ right now. More experienced. Again, and Justin Fields, when he came back from injury last year, played better. But I don't know. I think he still needs. I think he needs to sit behind Russ for a little bit, and then when he has an opportunity, then we'll see. But I think he should sit behind Russ and learn from him if he can. And again, when his opportunity comes, then we'll see what he can do. But right now, I'm leaning towards Russ, giving the Steelers the best opportunity to win. And how is Russell Wilson going to be with the Steelers? Pass catchers, and you got the running game. They put an emphasis on the offensive line. You got that running game with Jaylen Warren and Najee Harris. You got George Pickens, who's looking for some stability at the quarterback position finally. And then you don't know what you're going to get out of the other receivers. You got Calvin Austin. They drafted Roman Wilson, Van Jefferson, Quez Watkins. You got Pat Freiermuth, who I think is a good tight end. But who's going to be the other receivers that step up in this offense? Because they traded Deontay Johnson. Now, you know that with the Steelers, you're backed by a very good defense that could score points on their own. Like TJ Watt could get a strip sack for a touchdown. Minkah Fitzpatrick can return one to the house. This defense could score points on their own. So that's one thing that's going to help out either of these quarterbacks is you got a defense that can score points on their own. Or just get turnovers and put you in good position. Because this Steelers defense is going to be good once again. They added Patrick Queen. They got Dante Jackson in the Deontay Johnson trade. Like I said, you got Minkah Fitzpatrick, you got Alex Highsmith, Cam Hayward, and of course, TJ Watt, who is the best defensive player in football. It's between him and Myles Garrett. And then Micah Parsons, who was not very happy with his ranking of him being third. But yeah, you're third, but you're behind Myles Garrett and TJ Watt. It's not like, you're behind guys that don't deserve it. Those are the top 3 pass rushers in the NFL, are those 3. But yeah, the Steelers' defense is going to be very good this year. So, we could sit here and say, yeah, this team probably, might finish in last place. But they're not an easy game. They're not an easy team to go up against. Now, there are times, and we saw it last year, where, they lost to the Cardinals and they lost to the Patriots. Yeah, the Steelers have a habit of playing down to their competition. We've seen this for years. The one game that comes to mind, and, actually there's 2 games that come to mind, is Mike Glennon winning against them when he was with the Bucs back in 2014. And I'll give you another one, even though they had a very good defense that year. It was the playoff game against the Jaguars. Again, that was a good team. That was a very good defense. But you had Blake Bortles carving you up, and that Jaguars team put up 45 points against you at home. There's more games you could go back and from the last 15 years, you can go back and point out many different games. There was the year that what was it? The year after, right? Yeah, it was 2018. The Steelers played down to the Jaguars when they were in a free fall. The Steelers ended up winning the game, but the Steelers do have a habit of playing down to their competition. Oh, here's another game I could think of. When Aaron Rodgers was hurt, Brett Hundley and the Packers in Pittsburgh came down to Antonio Brown making a great catch along the sideline, Boswell kicking a game-winning field goal. And that was without Aaron Rodgers. The Packers' offense was not good with Brett Hundley. That's another game you could point to. Steelers playing down to their competition. But when they actually focus and they play how they're supposed to, they could beat anybody. I'm talking about the Killer Bees era. With this Steelers team, we did see them playing down to their competition last year, but also because, their quarterbacks were not good. Mitchell Trubisky was awful when he took over for Kenny Pickett. But, we'll see how it goes. And like I said, I think Russ is going to end up starting, and then if the Steelers are 2-5 or something, then maybe they go to Fields. Or maybe they go sooner than that if the Steelers struggle out of the gate. Who knows? But it's going to be this is one of the things to keep an eye on is that competition. So, but let me know what you guys think though. Who do you think should be the starter? Let me know in the comments, and that is all the time that we have for today. I appreciate you guys, and thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure to check out all the other shows as well. Look, this is a football show, but the team that you see taking over my 2 walls back there, I'm really losing patience. I'm getting really frustrated with what I saw. The Mets really beat up on the Yankees last night. Okay, and they swept the Subway Series, so make sure to get Sam's thoughts on that because I'm sure he'll talk about it today. But I'm very upset. I'm not happy. But yeah, make sure to check out all the other shows. Like I said, get Sam's perspective on the Subway Series, and everybody else's shows as well. Give the other shows some love, like I always say. So yeah, with that is all the time that we have for today. Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll be back again tomorrow, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. And until then, I'm Kenneth Gruenfelder signing off from the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great.